Stay tuned because for the next 60 minutes, Motorsports Unlimited is on the air. Hi, I'm Jerry Bryant, and these are the lovely ladies of Motorsports. And all this hour, we're going to have 60 minutes of action-packed excitement. All kinds of exciting things will happen.
If I may interrupt for just a moment. Hi, I'm Laura Formansky, and today we want to remind you about the Lake County Farm Heritage Association Fall Festival held in Wakanda, Illinois at the end of September every year. What does that have to do with motorsports? We think you'll be surprised at what you're going to see during the next hour. We haven't covered this show for about a decade, but that doesn't mean it isn't a great motorsport event. We think you'll see what we mean as the show unfolds, and we'll point it out if necessary. Keep in mind, while you're watching, the show was originally taped in 2002. With that in mind, let's join Samantha Bentley as she gets things started.
Today, we're going to introduce you to something you haven't seen on Motorsports Unlimited before. It's the Lake County Farm Heritage Association Fall Festival. And as you're about to find out, it may be one of the most technically interesting shows we've encountered. Don't believe me? Stick around for the next hour and I'll bet you'll be attending in person next year. Rather than me trying to explain, let's join Bill somewhere in Wakanda, Illinois and learn more.
What you are looking at is one of the slowest turning four-stroke motors that I've ever seen. Before Chuck gets too far away from that shot, and I don't know if you can exactly see it well, Chuck, the top of the engine with the two valves moving, and what I'm trying to show the audience is that the intake valve does not have a cam pushing it open. All it has is a spring holding it closed, so when the piston goes down and creates a vacuum, it pulls the valve down. How am I doing? Have I got the idea?
You're right.
Okay.
It's a throttling governor engine.
Okay, we're going to explain all that in a second. Chuck, you can come on over here now because I am surrounded, and I hope the audience can hear it and hear us at the same time with all of the popping and wheezing of these hit-and-miss motors. And I've got a person here that can tell us all about them, and you are?
Jack Schwal.
And where are you from, Jack?
Out of Cary, Illinois.
Okay, the motor we were just looking at, what was that again?
This is a throttling governor engine.
Meaning?
It's always hitting when it's firing versus the other engines that we have are a hit and miss. They'll hit, they'll coast, the governor will tell when to refire, and it'll continue to fire.
That's like the one I'm hearing over here?
Yes, exactly, the same
Okay,
process.
Don't run away. I want the audience to get a feel for this. Chuck, come on over here with me. You may not be able to see this very well, but I want you to hear it. All right, what you're hearing is an occasional pop. What the engine is doing, it's only running, the piston only fires when it has to keep the flywheel spinning.
To keep the momentum going of the motor, yes.
Okay, and about what RPM is that motor turning?
That one there's probably about 600 RPM.
Okay, very, very slow. What's the slowest RPM of all these engines?
They're running around 300, be very slow.
The thing I like about this, and again, we've got a large motorsport audience, the thing I like about this, if you want to see how engines work, you can actually see them work here. You can see the valves opening and closing.
Exactly, and then on the older models we had, you can actually see the piston moving back and forth.
What do you mean?
Well, the back of the crankcase is open, so you can actually see the piston going through its whole revolution.
Do you have one of those here?
It's right here, the red one.
Let me look at this myself, and we'll probably have to take this shot afterwards, folks. You're right, I can see the crankshaft spinning. Chuck, we'll have to get this afterwards. This is fascinating. You can see the crankshaft turning, the connecting rod, and the underside of the piston.
Exactly. You can see it in the top of the piston here has an oiler to keep the oil on the piston.
Absolutely fascinating. And when you think of this, folks, tomorrow we've got the United States Grand Prix, and the Ferraris turn 19,000 RPM. But they're doing exactly the same thing.
Exactly the same thing.
Right, this is a wonderful educational experience.
You don't see these anymore. Most of these engines date back to the early 1900s. The one we have running our one pump here is one of the later ones. It's the
Chuck, if you would, come right over here.
The 1947, 1948 vintage McCormick
and that's
Dairy.
kind of running all the time.
That's running all the time.
Folks, just so you understand, now listen to this. It's not hitting and missing, it's hit, 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 hit. The other engine that we were listening to would hit, then stop, and how is it stopping? Is it cutting the ignition off, or what's it doing?
It holds the exhaust valve open so there's no compression. And it's just freewheeling until it slows down. The governor senses the slowdown, closes that exhaust valve so it holds compression so it can refire.
So we knew how to do rev limiters before there was computers.
That's right. And this was all done before computers. It was all done by math in their heads.
Well, folks, again, we can only bring you a little, in fact, let's step back from the noise a little bit. We can only bring you a little taste of it. I can't help but notice that over here we've got one that's called a John Deere.
Yeah, this is the John Deere horse-and-a-half motor, farm engine. This one here is a hit-and-miss version also. And we're powering it up to a corn sheller. So it's belted up, we drop the corn into the sheller, and it takes the kernel right off the ear.
We should also mention that one of the main purposes of these engines, that's the reason you have so many of them pumping water, was back in the early days you didn't just tap into city water, you had to have your own water pump.
That's right. You had a well, either the early days you had a brick-lined well, could have been 20 to 30 feet deep, with a pump going down it, and these motors power the pump, and that pump sucked that water out, and it filled up another tank in the house, and then that would pressurize up into the house.
Okay, now as we look around here, Chuck, kind of pan your shot. We've got bees flying around again, so I'm sure it's making Chuck crazy because he's allergic to bee stings, and we've got them flying all over. What have we not told the audience that we should, that's interesting that I haven't noticed?
Well, just there's a large collection of various size engines. The larger engines were used to belt up to like a threshing machine or small corn sheller. These are all engines that were used some various ways on the farms.
Folks, once again, an absolutely fascinating look, and as I look down at this one, Chuck, right down in front of me, I can again see the crankshaft, the connecting rod, the piston. What a wonderful education for people trying to understand engines.
That's right, and this is the best
Do
way
you
to look
see
at
what
it.
we
You can
mean
see everything
about this show
happening
being a
and
wonderful
just sit in
motorsport
amazement and
experience?
watch how it works.
Folks, didn't I tell you that this is one of the most fascinating technical shows that I've encountered?